So tell me, Steve, after we've had at least a week now to think about things, what did you think about the 2020 MotoGP season? Sum it up for me in 5 words.
5 words. There's 2 gone straight away. I thought this season was bloody awesome, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Really did. At one point we didn't think we were going to get the season.
That's the crazy thing, isn't it? Like, we spent months thinking, like, shit, we're not going to get any racing. All the bike racing we're going to get was that one Moto2 race, that one Moto3 race, and we're not going to get anything else.
No. We sat here at home, everyone was twiddling their thumbs, everyone's in lockdown, divorce courts were getting really busy. But yeah, we got some racing, and what it turned out to be one of the best seasons we've had for a long time.
Yeah, it turned out just to be mental.
Yeah, completely insane. And I don't think there's anyone out there that would say otherwise.
No. I mean, you listen to all the professional journalists talk about it, and they're all like, this is the most bonkers season since like 2006.
It is. It's just every script book was ripped up this year.
Yeah.
Every playbook was just thrown in the bin. No one seemed to want to win anything. And every time we thought we had a clear-cut winner, they wouldn't either binned it or finished last.
Yeah, that did happen a lot. As we'll get into in this show, there was just a huge amount of inconsistency throughout the season. Like, one weekend, someone will be super fast and untouchable, and next weekend they'll be down in 15th place.
Yeah, it was just an absolutely insane season. One that we will talk about for many years to come for many different reasons.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. And today we will be running through and kind of doing a season recap and just talking our way through it and remembering the early races. And we'll just go through season race by race, I think.
Yeah, just have a little chat.
Cool. Okay, so I'm Tim, he's Steve, and this is for the love of MotoGP. So we started off in Qatar when we should have done. That's not really what happened. Moto2 and Moto3 started off in Qatar on the 6th of March because they'd been there the week before for testing or the week before that.
Yeah, they had a little test.
But the old COVID and the international travel bans meant that none of the MotoGP riders could get out there. And at this point, like we've just said, I was thought, oh shit, we're not going to get any racing, man. This is it. We're done.
Yeah, that week leading up to Qatar, was like there was so much talk about what was going to happen, like with MotoGP riders, and the world was just going nuts.
Yeah.
Everyone was like biting their fingernails, looking at jobs and their bosses, and the races were no different. And then all of a sudden, it was announced no MotoGP race because they just weren't there.
Yeah.
And then the tears started, antidepressants started coming out. Yeah, they were just lucky they were there for that little test, and we got a little snippet of racing.
Yes.
But I think sometimes I'd have been better off if we didn't get that, if they just cancelled the lot.
Yeah, I'm very glad we did get to see the Moto2 and Moto3 bikes going around because it did I think it gave me enough to keep me excited for the following 4 months as it would turn out to be.
That was incredible, those 4 months looking back on it now.
Yeah, and it's weird to think actually that the Qatar round would have been before the first lockdown in the UK.
Yes.
I don't know when other countries around the world locked down, but our lockdown was about 2 weeks after that, I think, if not a bit more. And it's
roughly, yeah.
Weird, it's a bit strange just thinking back to pre-COVID. Like anything before March, before the lockdowns, is weird. It's this weird reality that doesn't quite exist anymore.
It's a bit so. I can remember going to work and like all of a sudden all the COVID measures were up, and everyone was just so used to like bimbling around wherever you liked.
Yeah.
Being a factory, you could just wander everywhere, and all of a sudden there's arrows on the floor, and the boss is like, "You can't walk that way."
That's it. All the COVID one-way systems. My favourite thing is that viruses can't travel in a certain direction. So as long as you walk around the shop in a clockwise manner, you'll be fine.
That's it. And it's a really clever virus because it knows if you're in the pub after 10 o'clock.
Yeah, and it knows if you've got a substantial meal, mate.
Exactly, and it knows the difference between a substantial meal and a happy meal. It's great. It's such an intelligent virus, this thing. This thing is going to win like the environmental Nobel Prize.
Is
In my
I'm
eyes.
not sure that's a real thing, man.
I don't know if it is or not, but I just made it up. The carbon footprint this thing saved.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I mean, I'll give you that.
Absolutely amazing. Move over Greta.
I think I like Greta more than I like COVID, but
I like Greta for the fact that she travels around the world in a boat made out of some of the most toxic things known to man.
yes, but she's not pumping petrol into the atmosphere, Steve. That's the important thing there.
There is that. She's just getting God's breath blowing around the world.
Exactly. That's all we ever need, mate.
A bit of the breath.
Right. Anyway, let's move on. So, 4 months after Qatar, we saw finally MotoGP bikes on track in Jerez. We pretty much, I think we did just have a European season, didn't we?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
it was just.
Yeah, it was
like the round of Europe.
Yeah, at no point did the MotoGP World Championship leave Europe this year. However, we did get 14 races, so it's almost officially a World Championship. And I think, for all intents and purposes, it is a World Championship, and no one will be able to argue differently.
No, never. I think everyone was just absolutely overjoyed when they announced the calendar, although it was revised about 5 times.
I mean, the new calendar's already been revised twice for next year.
I haven't even bothered looking. I'm just like, I'm not going to look until we get there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to wait till like February before I start getting excited.
Yeah. I'm sure, everyone's just, let's just get Christmas and New Year out of the way and we'll get fat on whatever we're going to eat and drunk, and then we'll just worry about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I've got my Baileys turning up in the post tomorrow, so I am well prepped for Christmas, mate.
Baileys? Nice.
I bloody love Baileys. Cherie's very excited to be making Baileys cheesecakes, and I don't actually think we're going to have enough Baileys for that because I'm pretty convinced I'm going to drink most of it before she gets to the cooking. So, yeah, it's going to be good.
In my eyes, the only good place for Baileys is a cheesecake.
Oh, I just adore it. I love everything about it. It's one of my favourite drinks.
Oh, mate, no, I've never been that good. I've tried it with several different things, but I just can't get into it. My collection of bourbons is getting bigger and bigger by the week, which, yeah, I'm more of a bourbon and whiskey man.
It's quite funny, man. Like, I've been doing a lot of writing for a whiskey website, so I've been doing a lot of work for them. I really don't like whiskey. I really don't like it at all.
I absolutely love it. There is something really nice about it. It's just, you get a nice oaky one or a nice cedar barreled one, and you can taste the difference.
See, to be fair, it depends on the whiskey for me, because the other night when we were recording, I did have 2 different whiskies, and one of them was drinkable. The other one made me feel a bit rough. Some
have got a really sharp, sort of fiery breath to it.
Yeah, well, one of them was a very peaty, like a very smoked one. I don't like those kind of whiskies. The other one was quite light, and they describe it as fruity. I've never had a fruity whiskey. It never tastes fruity. It always burns, but it was lighter.
Yeah, I've had a go. I'm perfecting some homebrew moonshine at the minute.
Oh, you're back on that again?
Yeah. The still is finished.
Nice.
It is coming, and I really want to do the flavours that no one else does. So we're going for toffee, apple, and strawberries and cream again.
Ooh. Was it the strawberries and cream you tried to do last time?
Yeah, but I left it out for too long, and it kind of went a bit, it started growing and stuff.
Yeah, that's when you know it's good, mate. You never know what it's growing. You could have a really mental night with pink elephants flying around the room.
Yeah, but we're back on that again, and I'm going to try and perfect a few mental kind of concoctions.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I've got the dungarees ready for when I brew up outside.
Nice. Right, anyway, Jerez 1. Yeah. back to the racing again. We haven't even talked about the first race, and we've already been going off on tangents all over the place, mate. So, the first race of the year. Quite a lot of talking points. A lot of shit happened in the very first race, didn't it? We saw Quartararo taking the lead early on. Marquez made an error, then really hell for leather trying to catch him. And actually, when I was looking through the score sheets earlier, I realised Marquez scored the fastest lap in this race.
Yes.
And it was by a long way. It was like half a second faster than everyone else. But, with that extra half second comes the risk, and boom, Mark is down in the gravel. And it was... I don't think I'm saying this with hindsight because I remember thinking it clearly at the time. And I think I remember texting you early, which was, "Oh God, he looks hurt. This could be trouble."
Yeah, I remember getting that text off you. We were both watching it live at the same time because we've been hyped up looking for it.
Yeah,
and I think we like literally phones out at the same time. It's like, shit, he's hurt.
Yeah.
But it was like we've had 4 months away from racing, and all of a sudden we had this mental weekend, and it just summed up. Like we had no idea at the time what was going to happen for the rest of the season. Just how mental this first weekend was.
Yeah, it really set the stage for the season as it would come to be, didn't it? And it was the perfect setup. And really, at the end of the day, if Marquez hadn't hurt, I'm not saying I'm glad he hurt himself because I'm really not, because we are very lucky to be living in this moment where we're seeing arguably the greatest rider of all time in Valentino Rossi come to his twilight years, but we're also seeing, again, arguably the greatest rider of all time in Marc Marquez take that mantle from him. We're seeing two of the, whether you love them or hate them, we're seeing two of the best men to ever swing a leg over a motorbike riding at the same time on the same grid. And it's amazing to see. And I'm super stoked to see Marquez come back, maybe win a shitload more, get all the titles, become the greatest. So I really want to see that. And I want to say I've been able to see that. But this season wouldn't have been as bonkers as it was if he hadn't have hurt himself in this first round.
Absolutely not, no. I think we're just in another Marquez domination, to be honest with you.
It would have either been that, or it would have been a bit like 2015, where he had a shit bike and he crashed a lot. But when he wasn't crashing, he was winning. But he had to take the risks to win. And sometimes that paid off and sometimes it didn't. But then again, with the low scoring that this season was, he probably could have afforded to do that because he's not against two super good Yamahas in Lorenzo and Rossi like he was in 2015.
It was just a baffling weekend from the off. I remember sitting there just watching it, like eyes wide, not blinking, just thinking, what the hell is happening here?
Yeah.
And it did. It was like the perfect opening scene for a movie that just kept you enthralled for the rest of it.
Yeah.
It was just, like you said, set the stage perfectly. And we were walked away from her F1 asking so many questions about what was going to happen with Marquez in the next race.
Yeah, that's it. I think our podcast title, I haven't actually got it up, I'm going to have to look it up quickly, was something like, has the landscape of MotoGP changed already? Because we were already saying like he's out. He's probably not going to take this championship. We
knew he had broken his arm, didn't we? Fairly quickly after the race.
Yes.
But then throughout that week, everyone was just saying, following the story of Marquez's broken arm and how he was going to come back and try to race at a race 2.
Yeah.
And it was a massive, massive story. And no one could put the phones down or open a laptop without picking up the story. And then we're like, you're just getting pictures of him returning to the track. And everyone was just like, no, he can't do this. And then all of a sudden he was there trying it. And we just went on. And because the races were like one weekend after the other, it was just non-stop action.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And, by the time the races finished on a Sunday, you can follow social media with all the riders getting to the track on the Thursday and the debriefs and the press conferences. And before you know it, you're back on Friday afternoon and everyone's off work finally and you've got a chance to watch it. Watch the whole lot and just binge it in your pants because there's nothing better to do. Normally I have to record it and then come home and watch it in my pants, but I could do it live during the day.
See, the lockdowns weren't all bad.
No, they weren't all bad at all. Gave us some awesome time to watch racing. It sort of blended from one week to the next seamlessly.
Yeah, it did. And it was just like you say, it was all the triple headers, wasn't it? And all those back-to-back rounds. And what was it? Did it work out to be in the end 14 rounds in 18 weeks? 14 rounds in 20 weeks? Something like that?
14 and 18, wasn't it? Because at one point we had, 7 races in 9 weeks?
Yeah.
Which is an unspeakable amount for anyone to do. Not just the riders, but the teams, the logistics, getting everything set up.
I mean, I feel knackered from it. And all I was doing was sitting at home in my pants and watching it.
Exactly. I'm glad we both sit around in our pants and watch it.
Yeah, you wait till next season, mate. I'll be sitting on your sofa next year in my pants.
If you're back.
There was a moment of hesitation, like, oh, fuck.
Got to put him off here. That would be quite a thing. We're both sat on my sofa. We'll have to get some shots of that social media. All right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sat there, like, Sarah, take a picture of this.
She'll be like, no, I'm going out.
Yeah, I believe in you too. This Enzo would be straight in there. He's like, yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
it's used to sit around and watch bikes.
So anyway, so with Mark out, Quartararo went on to win the race and just looked great. Looked like, to be fair, even if Marquez hadn't crashed in that first race, the mistake he made put him far enough back that Quartararo probably would have taken the win regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone was hyped for that as well because, like, it's luck from last year. So many second places, podium finishes that everyone was just like, boom, here you go.
Yeah.
This is the Quartararo we wanted to see, and now we've got it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And yeah, he just looked so good in the early part of the season.
Well, we say the early part of the season, we'll come on to it, but it really was only the first couple of races he looked good in.
Yeah, that is true.
And behind Quartararo, who finished the race in first, we had Vinales in second and Dovi in third. And it set things up to look like sort of, if you'd have said to me at the beginning of that round, if Marc Marquez DNFs, what will the championship look like after one race? And I probably would have said to you something very similar to how it did look. So it did look like Quartararo was in first place, Maverick Vinales was in second, Dovi was in third. It was then Miller and Morbidelli, fourth and fifth. Kind of what you expect at that point, really. And there wasn't really any big shocks. And a lot of the talking points were, if Mark doesn't come back, can Fabio carry on this vein of form? Is this him laying down a marker to everyone? Or will Dovi, the old hand, be able to just do what Dovi does and just get the most out of the package and consistently score and end up taking the title? And that's what we were all saying.
Yeah, that's almost exactly what everyone had on the lips, I think. Everyone was just expecting that.
Vinales was in the conversation, but I think I made my opinion on that very clear early on, that I don't think Vinales can hack it mentally. But other people disagree with me, and other people who actually get paid to give their opinions on MotoGP, so are probably much more informed than I, believe Vinales would be capable of doing it. So he was also involved in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people rate Vinales much higher than what we do.
Yes, a lot of people really rate Vinales. I mean, and probably rightly so. He's won a good chunk of races. Has he won enough, considering the bikes he's been on? Maybe not.
I'd say not. But it's just his form. We've seen it over the years that he's just so hot or cold.
Yeah.
And you never quite know what to expect come race day. It could look perfectly good through practice and qualifying.
Well, he could put it on pole by a second and a half, and I still wouldn't be convinced he could win the race.
No, exactly that. Which makes him just, I daren't put money on him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the confidence in myself to walk into the bookies and go, right, here's 20 quid on Vinales for the win.
That's exactly it. It would have been nice to see what would have happened if he'd never left Suzuki.
Yes, that was going to be what I said next. Just with the way the Suzuki progressed this year, I'd love to see him on that bike.
Yeah, and arguably it would have been in a much better position. I mean, he won one race on it in his second year.
Yes.
And then they lost him, and Rins got injured, and Iannone had to make all of the engine decisions. And Iannone, arguably, whether you want to blame Iannone, you want to blame the engineers, someone picked the wrong engine. Now, if Vinales had been there and had already experienced 2 years on that bike, would he have picked the wrong engine? Probably not.
No, you'd have to say not. You would have thought, with that amount of experience, he would have known the bike, he would have known which way it needed to go, and you have to argue that he would have picked the right engine.
Yeah, exactly. So Suzuki arguably could have been 2 years ahead of where they are now, with a rider that already won a race when the bike was a bit shit.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether he would have performed much better. I mean, Suzuki are probably happy either way at this point. They're bloody champions. But
this year they're like, fuck it, I don't care what's happened in the past.
But if I'm Mav now, I'm watching that and watching what Mir did, and I'm thinking, fuck, that should have been me.
You've got to start questioning your choices when you look at like the times he's had at Yamaha are not much different to the form he had at Suzuki.
Well, arguably his form is way worse. Like at Suzuki, he was pulling results out of the bag that he never should have been able to get on that bike. At Yamaha, most of the time he can't do what the bike's capable of.
No, and there's a lot of comments coming out of him at the minute about how bad the Yamaha is, and how bad things are in the garage, which just shows so much discontent. You've got to be looking across at those boys and thinking, why did I leave that?
Yeah, and I think he's probably questioning that quite a lot.
I think this year will be the make or break.
Yeah, well, has he signed for another 2?
I think he signed for another 2, but I think this one, if like the results stay the same and like the general feeling stays the same, and he's every weekend coming out and shooting guns at Yamaha, I think decisions will be made this year.
I think it depends as well what happens with Quartararo, doesn't it, and how Quartararo performs. Because if Quartararo comes out and just blows him out of the water, then Maverick's going to have a hard time keeping his ride. However, if Quartararo comes out and flounders and neither one of them can perform, maybe Vinales gets another couple of years out of that deal. But then, why the fuck would he want it?
Exactly. Would you want the possibility of moving somewhere else on a better bike, potentially if there's a seat open?
Although, has he done too much damage to his reputation? Where is that better bike coming? Like, Ducati were interested in him, but he turned them down and signed for Yamaha again. Will Ducati be interested in him after another 2 years like this? Probably
not. Slippy slope downwards, isn't it? You could be on the best ball, one of the best bikes on the grid. If you don't perform, other manufacturers are going to start looking and thinking, well, why should we have you if you're not performing?
Exactly. So what's he going to do? He's going to end up on a satellite Ducati somewhere, maybe a satellite Suzuki. That's probably best case scenario for him. Or he ends up on an Aprilia.
He wouldn't want that.
No, exactly. So we'll wait and see. Anyway, let's move on to Jerez 2.
Yeah, that was a long one.
Yeah, so just 1 week after the first Jerez race, we had Jerez 2, which I believe, was this the Andalusia GP?
Yes, I think it was.
Okay, so we saw Marc Marquez return for a brief spell in practice.
He did.
But decided not to ride as the pain was just too much for him. And to be fair, he'd had his arm plated for 3 or 4 days, was doing press-ups and pull-ups and those ridiculous exercise.
Got those insane shots of him getting through the medical, that we just doing push-ups, and everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing?
One-armed push-ups on the broken arm. But yeah, he couldn't. I'm amazed if that was me, I wouldn't even be getting out of bed. I'd be like, no, I'm getting one of those little nurse's bells, and I'm going to use my left arm to ring it because I ain't moved my right arm because that's broken, and I'm just being whiny and terrible and demanding everyone do everything for me. Marc Marquez is just like, yeah, we'll go do some press-ups, jump on this monster of a MotoGP bike and get some laps in. Let's go, boys. That'll be all right.
Yeah, you got to feel for people who, if someone has the same kind of injury, and their boss watches MotoGP, and if they've been watching that at the same time, and just sort of looking at you going, why are you at home?
Yeah.
Come on, look at this lad.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Get to work, you lazy bastard.
Exactly.
But what the hell were we supposed to think when he turned up at that paddock for a Rev 2, and we're like, surely he can't be there to hop on this bike and have a go. And the bloody idiot did it.
Yeah, he did. And as we will learn, that would be much to his detriment.
Yes, this was the turning point for a bit of a sit down and rethink.
Yeah, exactly. But with Marc Marquez pulling out and not racing, Fabio Quartararo went on to win the second race of the season, his second ever race.
Yes.
And it made it 2 in a row at Jerez. Vinales once again finished second, and Rossi managed to pull a 3rd place in this one, making it a Yamaha 1-2-3.
That was a bit insane, that one.
See, it's funny because I don't really remember anything super exciting about that race. I was excited the MotoGP was back, but I remember it not being the most exciting race.
No, I don't think Rev 2 was like the thriller. I think because everyone thought we had a race the following weekend, everyone was going to take the data and be much quicker and a lot more competitive. We're going to see a lot more sort of pack racing.
Well, it certainly showed for quicker lap times and stuff, and we'll see that multiple times over this season, is that the second weekend was always way faster, sometimes up to half a second a lap faster through the race.
Yeah, a lot quicker. But it just didn't produce a kind of thrilling race that we thought it would, where everyone's so close in a freight train.
Almost a Moto 3 type race.
Yeah, I think they were just like, if off the top of my head, everyone was there, but they had that like 2 tenths between them, and it was just a bit processional.
Yeah, that's sort of how I remember it. I don't remember there being any great scrapping, and all I really remember is the two main talking points of it were, when is Marc Marquez going to come back? And oh my god, Yamaha's engines are never going to last the season.
Yeah, that all of a sudden there was different talking points. Everyone. I felt a bit sorry for Quartararo this way, so because although he won it, he was overshadowed by the whole Marquez Yamaha debacle.
Yes,
and everyone was just there.
Was.
Like, what's God, I can't talk again. What's Vignale?
Quartararo.
Yes, the one. The poor fella's pulled out his second victory on the bounce, and he's just all of a sudden getting overshadowed.
Yeah, that's
and everyone's just chatting. What's Marquez done? Why's the idiot tried to race? When's he going to be back? And then all of a sudden the engines come out of Yamaha, and they're like, everyone's, oh my god,
yeah,
what's going to happen?
So we would go on to learn, wouldn't we? Yamaha's engines. I've been off on my spiels about this, so we're not going to go off on it too much. But Yamaha were using illegal valves for the first two rounds. Those valves weren't particularly illegal because of their design. They were just a slightly different metal alloy to the ones they had been using, the ones that had homologated. It turns out they were a bit shit. So
they weren't best in the world.
No, so Yamaha lost a load of engines, but that's pretty much all we need to talk about. And then they would struggle throughout the rest of the season to eke out the life of the rest of their engines. We'd also come to learn, I say we'd come to learn, we would learn that Marc Marquez would have to go for a second operation on his arm.
Yes.
Now, the sensible money, I think, and if anyone can prove otherwise, I'll be amazed. But the sensible money is on the fact that Marc Marquez went out on his bike in this Andalusia GP and just put so much strain through that arm, it bent the plate.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people are talking that it could have caused some nerve damage in the process, and that is still a talking point now, and that's neither been confirmed nor denied. There's a lot of talk that in the shots we've seen of him working out and pumping iron and things, and I'm doing the actions because I sort of forgot that you're the only person that can see me, Steve.
I sometimes really wish we were filming because sometimes you get really animated.
Yeah, I do, and I'm sure I will be by the end of this show because I've got the shots here. So we're only... this is going to be a long show, man.
I was thinking that. I just scrolled through the list and was like, oh my days.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe it'll be 2 shows. I'm not sure yet. We'll work it out. Where was I? Marc Marquez working out.
Yes.
And a lot of people are saying that you can see, I'm not a physiotherapist, so I don't know whether this is true or not, but a lot of people who are intelligent are saying that you can see how much muscle is wasted away around that shoulder, and they're saying it's 6 months, a year of rehab to build that muscle back. So even if he comes back, he may well not be full strength for next year.
No, I did see a few shots of him on social media recently, and he's definitely thinner. He definitely looks like he's lost a bit of weight. Whether he's trimmed down through training, hard to tell. Because most of the shots we saw recently of him, or a month ago, he wore that steel plate. Steel plate.
His Biker Mice from Mars arm.
Yes, that kind of bionic arm plate brace, whatever it was he had covered up.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, shots with him without it, that arm definitely looks smaller.
Yeah.
So there is underlying stuff in there that isn't being publicised. It'll definitely come out. When he makes his return, I'm absolutely sure the full story will come out, and he'll be in the presser, and he'll be saying, right, this happened, this happened, this happened. We learn from our mistakes, blah, blah, blah. I'm back, jazz hands, let's go, win a race. Whew.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if he'll even talk about it when he comes back.
I think it'll be quite hush.
But we'll see.
We'll see what happens. First race there, because that will be a major talking point. As soon as we get into the new year, we're getting close to the season, that is going to be a major talking point. Is he coming back? And people, paparazzi will be following him around. You won't be able to go anywhere without someone trying to plug a story.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. And I think we would be remiss not to talk about the story that came out as to why he was having his second operation. Coming out from Alberto Puig, that Marc Marquez has bent the plate in his arm by opening a window at home, but it was a very heavy window.
What this winner was made out of, I have no idea.
the man who can wrestle a 300 horsepower motorcycle around a track bends a titanium plate in his arm, opening a window.
I don't know. I loved the social media that weekend because everyone was just like, Alberto, really?
Yeah.
Come on, son. It was almost like a schoolboy was put on the spot in front of his teachers and went, right, what happened? And they've gone, huh?
That's exactly it. You're right.
And just literally shat themselves and gone, hey, you knew?
Yeah.
And like sweated, and any spiel has just come out, and he's just gone, open the window.
Yeah.
When you break your mum's favourite jug or something when you're a kid, and you stood there right next to it with the handle still in your hand, and you're going, fuck knows. A rabbit flew in, knocked it out of my hand, grabbed it, flew back out the upstairs window, and vanished.
And that's when your mum's like, look, you need to stop taking the hallucinogenics, please, and put them
stay out
down.
your dad's drawer.
Yeah. So Jerez to the Andalusia GP finished with the championship still looking sort of how we expected. It finished with Quartararo in first place, perfect score so far, 50 points. Maverick Vinales, 2 second place finishes, had to put him with 40 points. Dovi was in third with 26, and then Nakagami and Espargaro were fourth and fifth. So the top three certainly was still kind of how we expected. I think we were a bit surprised Dovi was so many points back already. But
I think we were. I remember saying we expected Dovi to just capitalise on Marquez not being there, and he just hadn't at this point. But at the same time, I think we were saying he was just running an intelligent few races.
Yeah,
not pushing it. Little did we know.
Yeah. So that then brings us on to Brno, the third round of the year.
Next stop.
We didn't know it, but this would be the first of many faltering steps for Fabio Quartararo's 2020 campaign.
Yeah, I think it was the first one where we were all glued to the screens going, what the hell happened?
Yes, that's pretty much exactly the case. We saw this was the KTM's first win. Brad Binder, the rookie, going out, being the first rookie since Marc Marquez to win a race.
Yep.
5 seconds he won over Morbidelli and Zarco.
Blew him away, didn't he? Just went.
Yeah, and just looked unstoppable.
All right. This was also the first flutterings we got to see Morbidelli coming good.
It was. I think this is Morbidelli's first ever podium.
Yes. Yep. And then Mr. Zarco decided to step up there and was like, don't forget about me.
Yeah, exactly. Zarco on a 1-year-old Ducati back on the box after not standing on the podium for over a year.
Yes. Everyone was like, where did he come from?
Yeah, it felt like a real... we've used the term a lot, and I'm going to continue to use it a lot during the off-season and into next year. But the real changing of the guard moment, like you say, KTM won a race, a rookie won a race, Morbidelli stood on the podium, Zarco with a new manufacturer but on an old bike was on the podium. Like, it kind of felt like, whoa, things in MotoGP are changing now.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. This was the one where you sort of think the young guns have just sort of stepped up for the first time.
Yeah.
And we're just, you see it in in other sports and movies where all of a sudden it's just like the old boys, the old has-beens, if you will, sweating at the back, and the new guys are just like, did that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I think everyone said the same thing. It was like all of a sudden the tide had changed, the wind had changed, and it was just like, here we go.
Yeah.
We've said it in previous podcasts before, but you get that sudden shift of power, and this is definitely the weekend where that happened.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And especially considering we saw over that weekend, Quartararo only scored 9 points. So was that an 8th place finish, 7th place finish, I think. Maverick Vinales scored 2 points, so a 14th place finish. So those two guys that were head and shoulders above the rest of the field in the first 2 rounds had suddenly started to give away their advantage.
It's the first. Sorry,
it's okay. Yeah, as you were.
I forgot what I was going to say now.
Okay. So it sort of the weekend ended with Fabio Quartararo still on the top of the table with 59 points and extending his lead over Maverick Vinales, who's now on 42. And then it got interesting with Franco Morbidelli overtaking Dovi for 3rd place, but both of them on 31 points. Morbidelli's just there on countback because he had that 2nd place.
Yeah.
And Brad Binder sneaks into the top 5 with 28 points.
I think this was the race as well where we turned around and we said, like, how is Dovey still here?
Yeah. Because it was already starting to feel, wasn't it, like, oh, God, if Dovey can't sort this out, the rest are going to get away.
Yeah, all of a sudden it was like just a little shift, and we started talking about how it's already started to sort of squeeze at the top of the championship, and people have started to shift around.
Yeah.
Like you say, this was the first one where all of a sudden, if you had a bad day, it was a real bad day.
Yes, and that was certainly coming to the fore in this race, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like you can't afford to have an off day. Although, actually, with so many people having off days, it became apparent that you really could afford to have an off day.
You certainly could this year. You could afford 1, 2, maybe 3 sort of really bad sit-it-out days and still be, as Dovey proved, well up there in the championship.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a thriller of a race, but it was definitely, every race this year just left us with so much to talk about.
Yeah, that was exactly it. It led very nicely into the first round at the Red Bull Ring in Austria as well.
Yes.
That started with, again, talk of Marc Marquez. And will he come back? Won't he come back? And it was, you were starting to get the feeling now, right, he's going to be, 4 races down if he doesn't come back by this point. Can he make up that gap? And that was the talking point. And that talking point, to be fair, would go on for at least another 4 rounds.
Yeah, every weekend it was just like, will he be back? He'll be back. He'll be back. He'll be back.
Yeah,
and it just went on and on. I think it was because it was such a big story, and he's been such a dominating force in MotoGP. Everyone just expected him to come back and just dominate every weekend.
And like he has done in the past, he's had horrendous crashes in the past and come back and been fine. And he's ridden through. His shoulder was so bad. Do you remember in 2018 when he won? And Scott Redding came and patted him on the back, and it popped his shoulder out. His shoulder was so ruined that just patting him on the back would dislocate it, and he still managed to win the title then. Yeah,
because that's the season where all of a sudden Redding sort of, I think it was the last race, pulled up next to Marquez, and Marquez was like, no, fuck off, mate.
Yeah.
You're not touching me.
Yeah,
Jesus.
exactly.
Heavy-handed. Yeah.
So the main talking point of Austria was the crash. And it was the let's try and remember this correctly. So Zarco overtook Morbidelli, and cut in front of him. Close. Morbidelli then ran into Zarco's back wheel, taking them both out. And their bikes, and they were fast. They were going fast at the time, and their bikes screamed across the grass and over the track, where Vinales and Rossi were occupying the space. A
lot of things wanted to be in the same spot at the same time.
Yeah, and it was inches that those bikes missed Rossi and Vinales. It was like at the same time a bike went over Rossi and over Vinales and missed them by inches.
Well, it was the shot of Vinales sort of still leant over, going round a corner with his arm up to protect his head.
Yeah, from a motorcycle.
From a flying bike. I don't think Morbidelli and Zarco were even in the braking zone.
No, it was just before the braking zone. They had their coming together.
Yeah, so they had their off. The bikes, for some god I know reason, stayed upright. And Morbidelli's bike actually went through the crash barrier, and the airbag on the side of the track.
It bounced off those, isn't it? And that's what launched it airborne.
Yeah, luckily slowed it down a little bit. But like Zarco's bike, I'm determined to say Vinales, just dug into the gravel and barrel rolled past Rossi.
Yeah,
and the way they passed in between them was incredible. And everyone at that time, it happened so quickly. It was just like, whoa, crash, whoa.
Yeah, it was a super scary one. And it kind of felt in that moment, it was like, whoa, this is a dangerous sport. Because I honestly felt like we were within, a half a second of seeing 2 riders die.
Easily. Absolutely easy. And I'm surprised with the amount of bits and pieces, stones getting shot up and flying past, that one of them didn't get hit by something.
And that everyone was fine. Morbidelli was the most hurt, and I think he was just winded.
Yeah. They took him off to a med centre, didn't they, to get him checked out.
Yeah.
he was okay, a few bruises, and there was shots of Rossi in the pit afterwards looking at the screen and was like, whoa, white as a ghost.
And that's the moment I thought Rossi was going to retire. I thought
A
Rossi was
lot.
going to be done this year because he, like you say, he looked white as a ghost. He looked older than I've ever seen him. And it's when he got off the bike and it was like, whew, whew, and he's like shaking his hands and stuff. And like that moment, and we've all had those moments, whether it be on a motorcycle, in a car, or just in normal life, where you have that adrenaline spike, but you've kind of got to deal with what you're dealing with. So you can't let it take over. But as soon as the moment passes, you kind of, your legs go a bit numb. You can't really feel your fingers anymore. And like, you're just in that mild shock. And that must have been how Rossi felt when he pulled into the pits.
Absolutely. I mean, adrenaline's got a great way of just boosting you. But it's also got a horrible habit of leaving you so drained afterwards that when you actually, like you say, when you finally stop and look and take in what has happened, you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But a lot of people spoke that we might not see Rossi again, or this could be his last season because that will seal the deal. Thankfully, how the hell no one got hurt is a miracle, but we're so glad they didn't.
Yeah.
We did see extra safety measures put in place afterwards, didn't we? Where they extended the crash barrier out further to the corner, so if anything was to happen again, the bikes would really plow into these and not have the opportunity to get across the track, which everyone was thankful for.
Yeah, and now there's a lot of talk of reworking that corner completely, isn't there, and changing the design of it to stop it, just to make that kind of accident impossible.
Yeah, there was a lot of people throwing out like track ideas online, and some of them were really good. We could add in like a hairpin to the left and then sweep to the right, which would actually be a really good braking zone there. Be quite a nice corner. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we don't see some major changes made to that track this winter.
Yeah, it's just been that track has been that way for a long time. It has been through changes through years since it was the Österreich ring and the A1 ring and stuff. So it has been through changes, I guess. Yeah, we'll wait and see. It's not, to be fair, it's not like Red Bull haven't got the money. So
no, they will be fine.
Yeah,
they'll just crack open a few extra cans and just lay the track down.
That's it, exactly. They'll just maybe stop sponsoring a few extreme sports.
Yeah, maybe sponsor a few more, drag some more money in, and then do it. But yeah, luckily we did get the race back on track, though, didn't we?
We did indeed. So that was the red flag of the race, and at the time, Pol Espargaro was leading. However, at the restart, Pol Espargaro didn't have any fresh tyres.
No.
So was unable to kind of sustain the pace he had, which left Dovi in the perfect position to take the win.
All right.
Mir finished second and Miller finished third. Miller finishing third is kind of to be expected. It's a Red Bull ring. He's on a Ducati. Yeah. This was the time when Mir was like, when we were kind of, oh, look what Mir can do. Yeah, when he's on form, he knows what he's doing. What a great rider. Okay, cool. And I wasn't convinced. And I think I was quite vocal about not being convinced about Mir because I think he had a very underwhelming Moto2 season. I think he crushed Moto3, had a very underwhelming Moto2 season, and I thought he was brought up too early. Maybe it was a year too early, maybe it wasn't. That's semantics now, it doesn't matter anymore. But this was the time where you thought, oh, there is a MotoGP rider in here after all.
Yeah, just suddenly he popped up, didn't he? That second part of the race just appeared, and everyone just suddenly started to take notice of him.
Yeah.
Just sat down and was like, I'm here. Hello. And everyone from that point on just kept a little bit of an eye out for him. Just what he was doing. And then every weekend after weekend, race after race, just kind of like floated himself up there.
Yeah, he's just started climbing the tables. Like, he's still not in the top 5 at this point by the end of this race. So this race ends with Fabio Quartararo first with 67 points. Dovi has pulled himself up to second with 56 points. A further 8 points back is Vinales, and then we've got Binder 7 points behind him, and Rossi is 3 points behind Binder. So that's our top 5. So Mir hasn't made it into top 5 yet, and no one's talking about Mir as the dark horse of the championship yet, but
not yet. A
few clever eyes are starting to look at him.
Yeah, a few people in the know were starting to take sort of a watchful eye over him and just keep a little bit of bookies money back, shall we say.
Yeah, I think that's certainly true. Steve, let us take a quick break, and then we will dive in to talk about the second Austria race, the Styrian GP.
Go for it.
Okay, let me just do this shot and then we'll go. God, mate, it's revolting. Right, so thank you very much for bearing with us there, guys. Let's dive into discussing the Styrian GP. I have to apologise because I've just done a gross shot and my mouth is watering now. It's pretty... I feel very slavery. It's really not very nice.
Let's just take a second. Let's dive into the new section of the show. What is Tim drinking this week?
What is Tim drinking this week? This week, Tim has got an Israeli drink called Arak. I couldn't tell you anything more about it because it's not using an alphabet, I understand.
He's had too many shots.
Yeah. It's actually just from Co-op, mate. This is just a normal label. I just can't fathom it out at all. No, but it's pretty potent, and you're supposed to keep it in the freezer so it goes all like almost icy.
Nuts.
But yeah, it's okay. It does the job. It's just a bit gross.
Sound like an alcoholic. It does the job.
It does the job. I'll be on like the nail varnish remover soon.
Oh, Sheree will be like, "Wait, you said my nail varnish remover, Tim? What, glug?" No.
Do you know what you're talking about?
Yeah, he thought he said stronger.
Anyway, Austria 2, the Styrian GP.
Another not quite as mental weekend, but had its moments.
Well, exactly. Still another red flagged race. We haven't seen a red flag in a race in years, and then like buses, two come along at once.
Everyone at this point was like, Austria, ooh, what a safe place.
Yeah, quite. So the red flag in this race was caused by Vinales having his brakes fail.
Yeah, and he decides to exit stage right.
Yes, quite.
Big time.
He just realises he's not going to be able to stop the bike and has to jump off doing well over 100 miles an hour.
That's insane. I remember us chatting about this, and you saying, like, can you imagine what it's like to actually have that moment where you think, I've got to bail on this?
Yeah, because we've all been riding before and looked down at the road going past your feet and be like, fuck, that's quick. Even you could be doing like 50 miles an hour and go, whoa, that would hurt. That is quick. He jumped off over twice that speed, man.
Exactly. And just like we all have moments on riding our bikes where it's a wet road, you hit a bit of oil or diesel on the road, sand, anything. That little moment where you go tense.
Yeah.
If I pulled the brake lever and there was nothing there, it would take me ages to fathom what to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't. There's no way that I would have the foresight, I guess, to jump off. I'd be like Nicky Hayden was a few years ago when we remember seeing him go through the gravel, crash into the barrier, and up and over the top. That would be me because there's no way I'd be able to jump off. No way.
No, absolutely not. But just to have the courage to do that, everyone just stood there and was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, and he managed to do it, and his helmet didn't even touch the ground. That's the amazing thing. He slid off and just slid along on his back. Helmet didn't touch the ground.
No, but his bike, on the other hand.
Yeah, his bike had certainly seen better days than after tearing into the crash barrier, bursting the airbag, setting a light. It was not...
mad. That whole 30 seconds of events, everyone was like, "Where's he going?" Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Tesco's delivery's in, mate. I'm off. See ya. Just don't know. At that point, I was like, let's just not have another race at Austria.
Yeah, it kind of felt like that, didn't it? It's like, oh, this might be a cursed track now.
It's just throwing up too much. I was like, no, just calm down. Everyone calm down.
Yeah.
Another Yamaha causing trouble.
Exactly, and there was still a lot of talking points with that bike setting on fire. That was another engine. That
was another engine, yeah. More question marks. And I remember everyone sort of starting to look at the stats for Yamaha's engine allocation and working out that they weren't going to make it to the end of the season.
Yeah.
I think this was that race where everyone was going, well, hang on. All of a sudden, they've got 3 engines to get them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly. We've done 4 or 5 rounds, 5 rounds at this point, and we've got another 9 to go. Yeah,
everyone's starting to draw that question. Are they going to make it? And are they going to have to dip into that 6 engine and then start taking penalties?
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll cover that.
Yeah,
as we get to the end of the season.
That's exactly it. So before the restart, we saw Johan Mir was actually winning the race and winning quite comfortably. He was a good couple of seconds ahead.
He was, yeah.
But just like the week before, after the red flag, the leader had no fresh tyres. And I remember
Nope.
going on a bit of a rant about this at the time.
Yes, I can remember your rant.
and not believing that after they'd seen it happen to KTM that Suzuki made the same mistake. But it's what it is, and they did. And that left at the restart Pol Espargaro and Jack Miller essentially to fight for the victory. We thought it was almost like redemption for Espargaro. Was he going to be able to do it after being like so close the week before? But that final lap between Miller and Espargaro, that was one of the best laps of racing. This season had a lot of really good laps of racing, but this Espargaro and Miller one was up there with one of the best.
Definitely. We were watching that battle, and then I was thinking, you're going to come off. You're going to have each other off.
Yeah.
It was that close, and it was that kind of racing where they were both just taking no prisoners and just diving underneath each other.
That's it. And neither one of them's like a silky smooth rider, are they? They're both a proper, like, let's get the back wheel spinning, hang the back end out. That's how we're going to get around this corner. So they're both really wrestling their machines around.
Absolutely. And then it got to the last corner.
Yeah, the last corner, and I believe it was Miller going up the inside of Espargaro, wasn't it? And just took them both wide, which meant...
Yes. Just left it wide open for Oliveira just to seize his moment.
Yeah, so Miguel Oliveira, who'd been kind of just stalking the pair in third place. Now, he didn't have the pace to race them. I think we kind of have to admit that Oliveira was a tenth or so slower than the other two.
Yeah,
Did not have the pace to be up there and scrapping with them in a fair fight. However, the fact they were scrapping meant it wasn't a fair fight, and Oliveira had clear track in front of him, and he could just reel them in slowly. And then, yeah, like you say, as they went wide, that left the corner perfect for him, wide open, and he just across the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, he managed to hold. Miller and Pol were so far off line that he managed to hold the perfect racing line still, so full speed.
Yeah,
and whoosh, off he went.
Yeah,
and just claimed himself a little victory.
Yeah, took his first win in his second year of MotoGP. Took Tech 3's first ever win.
I love that. What was it, 20 years, 25 years they've been in the paddock with no wins?
Yeah, 20 years they've been in the GP paddock with no wins.
Yeah, and all of a sudden Oliveira comes along and just goes, hold my beer.
And it's amazing, isn't it, that when Hervé kind of went, Yamaha aren't giving us top level equipment, we're out, we're going to go work with KTM. And we were all like, oh my God, what is he doing? He's throwing away podiums almost every week to go to that team that are barely scoring points. Like, what is going on here? And yet, God, what a decision.
Yeah, probably, arguably, one of the best decisions they've made.
Certainly.
And it must have been a sweaty one at the time.
Part of me doesn't think... I think you can see the talent that Hervé has had riding for him in the past, and he's just been able to spot people and bring them in, and he works very closely with Yamaha in developing their young riders. I think Hervé just knows what he's doing. He's just got an eye for it. He sees something, he's like, that's going to work. So I kind of think he probably had the conviction to be able to go, nah, this is the right choice. It's going to be a shit year or two, but I think it's the right choice. And I think he firmly believed that all the way through.
I'm absolutely sure he did, just to do it, just to have the confidence to do it. He must have believed that, like you say, a season or two down the line, they would be in a winning position. Otherwise, he just would not have done it. Yeah. You would have held your guns out at Yamaha and said, right, it might take longer, but we're going to stick to this project and see it through to the bitter end.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I completely agree. He must have had 100% confidence it would happen. I still think that decision must have been a hard one to make. But like you say, we know he has great foresight for seeing good riders, good projects. I mean, look at the Zarco Folger. Yeah, perfect. And everyone was saying, like, who saw that coming?
Well, that's it, exactly. I mean, the Zarco kind of made sense, didn't it? Zarco was a two-time Moto2 champion at the time, but Folger hadn't really done anything. Like, he won the odd race, hadn't he? He stood at the podium a couple of times, but a bit like Quartararo, to be fair, when he came in.
Yeah, very similar, actually.
But yeah, he just has an eye for people, and he's always just supposed to pick a rider and really get the most out of a rider as well.
Yeah, he is on my list, like my bucket list. I'd love to sit down with Hervé and Guy Coulon as well. If we could get them both on, I'd love to sit down with them two and just pick their brains.
Yeah.
Not that they ever would come on and talk to us. But, you know, if we could, I'd love to pick them apart and just see what they think and how they look at it and just get their point of view on the GP paddock.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a great interview.
It would be fantastic, certainly. And they've both seen so much. Like, Hervé's seen so much in his 20 years.
God, yeah.
Oh, well, he's been in the paddock for more than 20 years. He's had a MotoGP team for 20 years.
Yeah, and like Geek Hoolon's been Back to the Future 100 times, so...
He's got about 4 DeLoreans sitting at home ready to go.
I loved it when we saw him on the podium at the last race. Oh, that was just epic. He was just amazing. Love Geek Hoolon.
Yeah, he's fantastic. But this race really was the moment for me, certainly, that I realised, whoa, this season is going to be ridiculous. KTM have just won their second race of the year. We saw the third new winner in MotoGP. In 5 races, 3 of the winners had been brand new winners. And actually, in fact, at this point, the only rider to have previously won a race before this year and win a race this year was Dovi.
Yeah. Everyone else was newbies.
Yeah. So it was kind of, again, it was the changing of the guard, but that moment that you kind of go, Marquez isn't coming back. Yeah. No one's laying down a marker here. This season's going to be tough for whoever.
I completely agree with you. I think I sort of held out my hope, or not held out my hopes, but thought after the weekend we had before, I think everyone was hoping for a more not relaxed, conservative race, should we say? Because everyone was just like completely shit themselves the weekend before. But it just wasn't. We got the usual nuts bonkers weekend, and then, like you say, I think everyone at this point had just gone, it's insane.
Yeah.
And every race didn't disappoint after that.
Yeah, that's it. It just kept getting more and more ridiculous. But we left the Styrian GP with Fabio still in first place on 70 points, but having only scored 3 points from the weekend before. Dovi was closing the gap down now. He was on 67 points in second place, so only 3 points back. Jack Miller had then made it up into third place. Just a mere 14 points back off the lead. Brad Binder was 7 points off Miller in fourth place, and Vinales had dropped down to fifth on 48 points.
Right.
So the championship was starting to look weird now.
It was, at this point it was just like, this doesn't look right.
Yeah, up until this point, the championship kind of looked like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see it happening. It kind of all makes sense. But now the championship was looking weird with, a Satellite bike was on top, but it was Quartararo. So you kind of expected that. Dovi in second, cool. Only 3 points off. At this point, still in a lot of people's heads, probably still going to be the one to take the title. And then it got weird with Jack Miller in third, pretty close. A KTM in fourth? What?
Yeah, everyone. I was then going to say Brad Binder managed to keep himself in that table for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And he did really well just to keep within touching distance.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember saying, there's a universe in which Brad Binder can go and win this championship.
There was. Everyone was starting to talk about the championship at this point because we're coming up to nearly halfway through the season.
Yeah.
And everyone was looking at it going, well, this is realistically anyone's. And I think at this point there was 8 people still within touching distance.
Yeah.
Realistically with a chance to win the championship. But no one expected Brad Binder to be in there. No one expected Dovi at this point to only be 3 points off the lead because of his fault.
It was the weird thing, wasn't it? That if you'd have told me, if you'd have described to me pre-season, this is what's going to happen. Marquez is going to be out in the first race. By 5 races in, where is Dovi going to be? I'd have been probably quite comfortably in the lead or very close to it.
Yeah.
But the idea that I kind of expected him to be on more points to do that, though. It's not that he'd be on just 67 points. I expect him, to have scored first and second places in most races and to be on well over 100 points by this point.
Yeah. No one expected that kind of inconsistency, but with the inconsistency being so bad.
It's so wild. Like you say, it's going from winning races to scoring 13th place, and then at the same, because that was kind of Fabio, wasn't it? Fabio's kind of going from wins to just inside the points, whereas Dovi kind of chipped away at 7th or 8th place all the way and just kept himself in contention by doing that.
Dovi was actually one of the most consistent people this year.
He was just shit.
Yeah, he was just bad, so bad. Dovi. And, with all the talk after race 1, and race 2, where Marquez wasn't going to be there, all eyes just suddenly turned and looked at Davi and went, "You're up, son."
Yeah.
Nobody accepted the fact really that he was just going to plug away at almost a perfect level with a few odd extra dips in there and just not get on that top start more often.
Well, he only won one race. It's got to be his lowest win tally for the last 3 or 4 years, I would guess.
Easy off the top of my head. Everyone at this point was just like, Davi boy, that's all yours.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of what it looked like, didn't it? It looked like it was supposed to be, I guess, on paper, a scrap between Quartararo and Dovi.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we expected, but no one expected this amount of people within one race win of winning the title. If you know what I mean, if you follow me.
Yeah, it was because you got to think that top 5 are all covered in less than 25 points.
Yeah, I think they're down to 7th at this point. We're covered by 27 points or something.
Yeah,
which is insane for this group because we got so used to seeing one runaway leader.
Well, that's it. When you've got Marquez scoring 20 or 25 points every single race, you can't afford to be finishing 6th and 7th and still hoping to be in the fight.
No one expected that.
Not at all. So that led us on to the first San Marino round.
Yes, another double header. Was this a triple?
Well, it was 2 races at San Marino, wasn't it?
Yeah, then we had a weekend off, didn't we?
I can't remember, to be honest, what the triple and double headers were.
I think everyone got a bit burnt out. It's like, is there a race this weekend? Probably,
yeah. There's a race of if it's not on 2 wheels, it's on 4. Like, there's definitely racing this weekend.
To be fair, though, the racing this season with all that went on there was so much compact into one weekend. Like my TV planner was just like racing.
Yeah,
it was either GP, Formula One, Moto America, BSB, World Superbikes. There was always a couple of races on every weekend.
Yeah,
and the telly was just like, give us a break, mate.
The thing is, this year, because it was so condensed, I have yet to watch all the Formula E. I love Formula E, but I haven't managed to watch all that. I only watched maybe 2 or 3 rounds of World Superbikes. I haven't watched any British Superbikes, didn't watch any Moto America, because it was so condensed. Normally when it's spread out, I can be like, right, okay, this weekend's MotoGP weekend, then I'll catch up World Superbikes, there's a Formula 1 next weekend. But there's just been so much in such a short space of time, I haven't been able to do it.
No, we got so used to having little breaks in there where you can, I don't know, one weekend we got MotoGP and I'll watch Friday practice, Saturday practice and qualifying, and Sunday the race. Following weekend we haven't got a race, but right, I'll catch up with I don't watch all the qualifying and practice from other race series. So on the Saturday morning I'll watch the BSB.
Yeah.
And then if I get time, Saturday afternoon I'll check the World Superbikes on and so on and so forth. So you have time to catch up. This year it's just been mental. You haven't got time to catch up, and I think a lot of people are still going back through and watching the stuff that they've had recorded.
Yeah.
And just enjoying a few weekends of. That's exactly what I'm doing. A few weekends now of catching up on the racing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely the case.
Bit spoiling because now it's all over. You know exactly what's going on, but you still want to see it.
Well, that's it. I mean, Formula 1's not finished yet, Steve, so you can still be watching that.
I have started trying. You talk about Formula 1. Did you see it this weekend?
Mate, this was bonkers. That crash for Romain Grosjean was ridiculous. It was just the scary thing that it caught fire, I think, is what was really scary. Because
it was instant as well, wasn't
it? Instant combustion. It was. We don't see crashes like that anymore.
No.
And the way the car just split in two.
Two things happened there. Structural failure.
Well, it turns out not. The car is designed to do that, but no one really realised the car was designed to do that.
Oh, right. Oh, scrap that one then. Point number 1, fuel tank rupture. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Must have happened for that to go up like that.
Yeah, I think the official line from Haas is that it was a fuel line. But that seemed like too big, too quick to just be a line.
Yeah. All right. The flame could have travelled back into the fuel tank. But on a car like that, I would expect a cut-off valve.
Yeah, exactly.
So to me, it says rupture, fuel tank rupture.
Yeah.
But the bit I don't think anyone expected was, because I saw a lad I work with, this huge Formula 1 fan, and he posted a picture of it. So got it on recording. I have to watch this, just make sure, see what's happened. And,
yeah.
what I didn't expect was, from the camera angle, it looked like from the crash, Grosjean was in the back half of the car, which sat to one side, which wasn't quite as on fire. Did not expect him to be the other side of the fence in the fucking flames.
Well, the fence, wasn't it? Because did you see the pictures afterwards of his? Because they have the survival cell in Formula One cars, which is that the Formula One car, like the monocoque chassis, is incredible, and that survival cell in there is amazing. And I mean, that survival cell essentially remained completely intact, and as it hit the fence, it split the Armco in two.
Yeah.
So it ended up stuck in the Armco. If it wasn't for that Halo head protection system, Grosjean would be dead. There's no two ways about it. He'd have been decapitated.
Yeah, I did see someone put on social media, it was like, there you go, haters or doubters, that's why you have the Halo.
Yeah, exactly. And people have died in the past in racing series from exactly those kind of crashes and exactly that, the really gruesome deaths. And the Halo saved his life. There's no two ways about it. But as the car got stuck in the Armco barrier, it then caught on fire. He was in those flames, I think it was 30 seconds. It took him to get out of the car and out of the fire. And he's got second-degree burns on his hands. That's all he's got. It's amazing.
Yeah. The testament to the safety gear.
Yeah, it really is.
Flame retardant suit, neck piece.
Yeah.
Helmet liner, boots, gloves, everything else.
And so they even wear flame retardant underwear and stuff, like everything is flame retardant.
I saw it. I was like, Jesus. Then he hopped over the barriers. I said, fuck for that.
It's bonkers. The thing with it is, and no one's really spoken about this at all, is it was a very Grosjean type crash. It was 100% his fault. He's a very crashy driver. He makes errors like that all the time. He cut in front of someone before he'd overtaken them, and he just clipped his back wheel into their front wheel, and that's what sent him off the track. It was a very, very Grosjean type crash. But because it was the scale of the crash, and it's like, oh my God, thank fuck he didn't die. No one's really talking about the fact he was an idiot to do that in the first place.
Yeah. I'm sure the question will come up. There'll be an inquiry at some point, but everyone's just, so happy he's alive. And
yeah, that's exactly
unscathed.
In other Formula One news, actually, before we dive back into San Marino, Lewis Hamilton has COVID and is out this weekend.
I saw that earlier on.
Yeah, so thank fuck he wrapped up the title, eh? Or imagine if it was going down to the final 2 rounds and the title hadn't been sealed yet.
Well, he'd be gutted, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
But he'll be okay. It's just exciting to see who will be in that Mercedes, because that's like... I don't even know the equivalent in MotoGP now, because what is by far the best bike on the grid? There's probably not one.
No, not really. Probably you'd have to ask...
2008 Yamaha, maybe.
I was going to say, the Fiat Yamaha days.
Yeah.
Take it back there. Something along that line. A Marquez dominated. I did see a post earlier that said, like, here you go, you Mercedes hating or doubting buggies. You're now going to see that the car can race. Because everyone said it was only Hamilton that could race it.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I feel like it goes one of two ways. Because a lot of people say Hamilton's only winning because he's in the best car. And then the other half of people say the Mercedes are only winning because Hamilton's driving the car. So it's really funny, the two schools of thought that just can't decide. And I mean, it's definitely the best car on the grid. There's no two ways about it. And Hamilton's probably the best driver on the grid. So the two, when you put them together, just mean that it's an unstoppable pairing. And that's what we've seen in Formula One for the past, what year is it? The past 6 or 7 years?
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, back to the motorbikes. So, San Marino. This was the race where Morbidelli stepped up, properly stepped up.
He announced his presence on the scene at this one.
Exactly. He kind of came out of the shadow of Quartararo, which, let's be fair, he'd been spent a year and a half in at this point. And he stepped up and he took the win in commanding Lorenzo-type fashion, just the whole shot and just gone. We did see Rossi chasing him for quite a long time, but Rossi slowly dropped back. Bagnaia overtook him into second place, and then Mir finally did him on the last few laps. So it's a shame Rossi didn't finish on the podium, because it would have been really nice to see him on the podium with Morbidelli and with Bagnaia. Yeah,
this is the race where afterwards he turned around and said, like, they put out that tweet that says, "Why did we start the academy?"
Yeah, that was it. What was his line? It's like something like, when Bagnaia overtook me, I thought, oh, whose fucking idea was this academy?
Well, I thought that was absolutely brilliant. But again, that showed, like, when he's going to falter, he just dropped back a long, long way.
Yeah.
But like, and on the back of this result as well, we saw Bagnaia getting signed for the factory Ducati deal.
Which, you know, a good signing for Bagnaia at the time, because as the rest of his season would go, not great.
Yeah, good job. He got a good result in at some point, and you know, Mir again on the podium, starting to make himself heard.
Yeah, exactly, and a DNF for Quartararo as well, which is quite an important factor in this race.
It's first one of the year, wasn't it? His first DNF of the year.
It was, and it was the first time he lost the championship lead in the year. So the championship ended after San Marino as Dovi in first place on 76 points. Quartararo was then in second, 6 points behind on 70. Miller still performing well, only 6 points behind Quartararo. And Johan Mir now 4 points behind Miller and only 16 points off the championship lead. And
he started to just tickle his way up there, hadn't he?
Yes, exactly. It was just that kind of those podiums coming in consistently while everyone around him started to fall apart is what pushed him to. And it was it this point we were starting to talk about him as having a chance?
I think it was either this weekend or the following weekend, because we saw the championship close up even more at San Marino too, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
And I think it was after San Marino 2 that we really started to take note and think, hello.
Yeah, it certainly was. I'm now actually just looking back through our recordings or through our podcast for the year, and we spoke to Amy Reynolds after San Marino 2, but the podcast went out after Catalunya, and that was the point where Amy was telling us, like, yeah, the people in the paddock are talking about Mir as the favourite for this championship. So it was, this was the talking point. This first San Marino race was the point where people are like, ooh, Mir is looking good. And it was the next one where they're like, yeah, we think Mir could be the one.
Yeah, this is the middle of the season where he really started to come on swan song. And, you know, with 7 races to go, it's not far. It's not much to do. And they were, in terms of like a time scale, it was the shortest end of the season we'd had for a long time.
Yeah, certainly.
It's going to be over quicker from halfway than it ever has done before.
Yeah, that's it.
So we weren't going to have long to wait to find out what was going to happen.
No, exactly. And just a week after the first San Marino race, we did have San Marino 2. Vinales finally managed to get a win this year.
It annoys me with Vinales because we know he's capable of it. It just doesn't happen, does it?
This is the problem. It's just the inconsistency, man. And it's the fact that it's not even inconsistency week to week, is it? It's day to day, the inconsistencies.
I don't know. I really want to see him do well. And every time he does something like this, and he looked really, really good with his win, and looked so relieved and comfortable on the bike. But then, like the following weekend, it all just falls apart.
Yeah.
And I hate it. I absolutely hate it because I really want to see him do well, but I could never see it happening. You know, and I really want to see him see what he is capable of doing on that Yamaha, but I don't think we're ever going to get to see it.
No, I'm not convinced. I really don't think, and I don't know how he's going to hold up to Quartararo as his teammate next year, but I don't think it's going to be good. No,
I really, really don't think it's going to be good at all. Which will be sad, but at the same time, with so much new talent coming in, you want people on these bikes who can consistently win and consistently produce good racing.
Yeah.
But saying at the same time, when you've got somebody who blows so hot and cold, if they're going to challenge for the championship and then lose it, it just makes things so much more interesting.
That's true. There is the excitement of it, isn't there? Yeah. But you just don't know what's going to happen. And it's more fun if you've got 2 or 3 riders that are doing it and like on alternate weekends and maybe just have one fight with like butting heads and that's the real decider.
That's pretty much what we've seen this year.
You
know, they all perform badly just at different times, so they've kept the points so close together.
Yeah.
Like after San Marino 2, looking at the table, they're so close. And to go to the last race of the year, we always want to see the championship decided at Valencia or the last race of the year. So we want this kind of close-knit racing, close-knit title racing. But at the same time, we're greedy. We want a freight train.
Yeah, exactly. We want to see a real scrap. We want to see like a a Rossi Lorenzo just butting heads every round,
Yeah.
stealing a win each way. Like every other weekend, one of them's winning, and it's just that's the kind of scrap we want to see. But then this does make for an exciting championship because after San Marino, like you say, we saw Vinales win, Mir finished second, Pol Espargaro finished third. Great for KTM again.
Exactly.
And Quartararo actually finished fourth, which was his best result outside of his wins all year. But we see the championship, like you say, Dovi's in first place on 84 points. 1 point behind him is Quartararo on 83. Vinales is also on 83 points. And only 3 points behind them is Johan Mir on 80.
Yeah. And then someone has started to creep into fifth here in Frankie Morbidelli.
Yeah, Frankie Morbidelli there, 64 points. So 24 points back off the lead. But kind of, he's still making himself known.
Yeah, but on equal points of Jack Miller. So 6 people already, 20 within 20 points of the lead.
Yeah.
When was the last time we saw that in a season?
Oh, do you remember there was a point in, I think it was 2016, coming into the second half of that year, and we had like 5 or 6 riders within a race win?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it was 2016, where all of a sudden, in the second half of the year, it sort of blew apart a bit, where
Marquez went on a tear and just started winning everything again.
But you're right, up until that point, because we got so used to seeing Marquez dominate and people sort of swap places and have a good few points between them.
Yeah.
That we hadn't seen a close-knit championship with that many people in it for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But we love it. We love a good close-knit championship. It's all juicy.
That's exactly it. So, Steve, I think this show is going to be really long if we do the entire season. So,
I completely agree with you. We've been chatting for nearly an hour and 3/4. So we've been recording for probably about 10 minutes.
The recording's gone so far nearly an hour and 20 minutes. So I think we call it here and we will record the last half of the 2020 recap next week.
Let's do that. Yes, let's spread it out. Otherwise, these guys will be the perfect, put you to bed podcast.
There is a podcast called Sleep With Me, and it's not what it sounds like. It is just people talking, and they make you sleepy.
Really?
Yeah, it's just one guy talking, actually. It's all a bit ASMR, and it is, to be fair,
What is this ASMR thing? I'm seeing it everywhere. It was on one of the kids' adverts on the bloody telly earlier.
It's a thing you can do. I was about to lean into the mic to make it work, but actually the mic I'm recording on is different to the mic I'm talking to you on, and the mic I'm talking to you on isn't good enough to pick it up. But it's just some people get affected by certain noises, and it makes it gives you a weird buzzy feeling around the back of your head. It's called a brain orgasm unofficially, which makes it sound quite dirty, but it's nothing that it just feels nice, and you feel a bit sleepy and a bit tired and a bit drugged up, and you just got this nice tingling feeling around your head. And certain people, I think it affects 25% of the population, but people have different noises that do it. Yeah, some people have it it would be whispers. Other people, it would be very gentle rain noises or white noise, or binaural beats can do it as well.
Yeah, right. I see.
So
you have to get really close to your mic.
Just like that, yeah.
All right, next podcast we'll give it a whack.
Yeah, and just us do some weird deep breathing or something.
Yeah. It's all very strange to me. I don't really know.
That's back to us sitting on the sofa in pants again, isn't it? Deep breathing into microphones next to our mouths. Right. So, yes, let's end the show there. We'll end our first half of our season recap there. We do have a couple of messages from people. One of them is a correction sent in from Geraldo in Portugal.
Yes.
So I'll read it out, and then I'll try and defend myself and fail. So the message comes: "Hi there from Portugal. I'm just hearing your last podcast and would like to correct some information. The bikers convoy that escorted Miguel Oliveira to the circuit was not an accident. I said it was an accident. That's my fault. It was planned, and it was a planned support action organised by the Miguel fan club and local bikers. Miguel was not aware, but one of his friends was. The accidental part was that Miguel's friend was supposed to trick him to stop after the highway tolls where the convoy was supposed to appear, but Miguel decided to continue and not stop there, so all the bikers needed to move on and catch him a few kilometres later. Sadly, in the past weekend, Portugal has had tight restrictions. There were more call support actions planned, but they couldn't go ahead because of COVID lockdowns. So let's see if 2021 will bring more action and the public will be able to assist in some more surprises for one Miguel Oliveira. So thanks for the great podcast from Geraldo. So thank you very much for writing in, Geraldo.
Yes, cheers, buddy. So people do listen.
People do listen, as it turns out.
I know, and it is actually really nice to get corrections. If we get something wrong, let us know. And it is good that he's got in touch. And
certainly, we are just fans. We are really
we're not reporters.
Very well informed. We just have strong opinions. I certainly have strong opinions. Steve has got correct opinions most of the time, but just lets me mouth off and then just tells me off about it later as soon as we've stopped recording.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just love the racing, and it is just nice to chat about it with someone like-minded and equally as into the racing as me.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So we do really appreciate it when you guys just let us know when we've made mistakes, and neither one of us is too proud to admit our mistakes. So anything we say, tell us.
Sorry, mate. Cut you off there.
That's fine, mate. I'm not too proud to admit my mistakes, Steve, but you are too proud to listen to me talk, and that upsets me.
All right.
No, carry on.
I was just going to say, it's interesting what he put in there. If it's planned, hopefully next year without COVID restrictions, I'd really like to see if we do go back to Valencia, Portimao, sorry, which there is talk of. I'd be really interested to see what Portuguese people would do in support of like the local rider.
Yeah, certainly. And it looks like, I mean, we've already spoken about how the 2021 calendar is shifting and changing already, but it looks like it may be early in the 2021 season that we will end up in Portugal again. And, oh, good Lord, I hope we do, because the track is
really hope we do.
stunning.
It was one of the best tracks we've seen MotoGP bikes go around ever. I mean, Laguna's by far my favourite, but this one is well up there.
It's funny how you say Laguna, because I was actually about to say this is the best new track the calendar's seen since Texas. And it's just the elevation change, isn't it? That's what it is. That's what makes it so great, because Texas has amazing elevation change. Laguna obviously has amazing elevation change.
Yeah. It's all about the up and down. If you get a dead flat track, you've got to have something really, really special.
Like Silverstone is like bowling alley flat, but it's just a fast track.
Yeah, longest track of the year, and it's just got some incredible corners. If you get some elevation changes in there, you start adding some camber onto the track, you've got a completely different ball game altogether. Add that into the back, like the Portuguese backdrop, which is incredible. Crazy Portuguese fans, which we need to get back in there. A hell of a facility, and all of a sudden you've got like a perfect race weekend.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it was almost a perfect race weekend. It's just a shame there was no fans in there.
There was talk there might have been at one point, wasn't it? But then, like Geraldo said, local restrictions happened. There was one point where we're thinking it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
They tightened everything down, which is the right thing to do. But it just meant no fans.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a shame that Formula One was there a few weeks beforehand and had shitloads of fans in there.
That's what everyone said. They're like, oh, come on. But it is what it is. It's COVID. It's crap. Everyone wash your hands and stay away from each other, and hopefully we'll get rid of it.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. So our next message comes from George in California. And I want to read this one out. I mean, it's not a correction. It's not George telling us that we're a bit shit at what we do. I want to read it out because it made me feel all warm and fuzzy, and I think I'm going to print it off and put it on my bedroom wall because I've never received such a nice message from anyone. So
no, when we got this through, I was like, for a minute, I had to read it twice. I was like, well, there's no criticism in here. What's wrong with you? Put some criticism in there. And then I realised what it was, and I was like, ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's it. So we asked in the last show if anyone actually listens to these bits that we do on the end. Much like this, who knows who's actually listening at this point.
Sleepy people.
But George did do get in touch to tell us that, yes, people do listen. So to Tim and Steve, to answer your questions from the latest podcast, yes, we listen to the bitter end every time. An insane season and a blast to watch and follow. Then add some FTLOMotoGP each week and we are complete. I really enjoy listening to the shows, casual chat amongst friends about racing and other tangent-driven topics.
That bit.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it that someone likes our tangent, Steve.
I know, that's great.
At the risk of sounding a bit soft, I truly feel connected to you guys. It sounds weird, but I consider you both as friends. I know it sounds weird. The two of you have got some way to go to catch it with the Gas It Out podcast, but we love you just the same. Keep it up. And yeah, it was just a really lovely message. And
that is a really nice thing to receive.
Yeah, it really was. And as much as we started this show just for an excuse for you and I to sit and talk about MotoGP.
It was basically an excuse just to have a beer or several beers and just talk bike.
Yeah, that's sort of exactly what it was. But I feel like it is growing into more of a community than that. It's become more than just us chatting. And at least it's felt like that to me. And it's just nice to hear from someone else that this show, it's not making a difference in anyone's life, but is at least kind of giving someone an hour and a bit of just, way in their day.
Yeah, if it gives you a little lift and if it's something that you look forward to every week, that's great. Yeah. I mean, personally for me, we don't make anything out of it, do we? It's not a profit-making thing. We're not reporters. We're not professionals. It is just literally two friends talking about something they love and just putting it out there for anyone else who wants to listen and get involved.
Yeah.
We're always open to questions, suggestions, criticism. Not too much criticism.
Yeah, not too much.
Just a little bit. It depends on how much we've had to drink. You just blast it at us.
Yeah, you'd caught me in the safe zone right now if you were going to throw criticism my way, because I feel very loved up with the perfect amount that I've had to drink tonight. So today you'd have criticised me and got a hug in exchange. Although in COVID times, maybe you wouldn't want the hug.
Like one of those weird, like elbow bumps.
But we don't like the elbow bump because you got to get close. I like the fist bump.
Yeah, that is true. It's just a weird thing. Very weird thing. I had someone actually the other day. I went into a shop and I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I was looking for something. I was getting really stroppy because I couldn't find it, and I was going the wrong way against the arrows.
Oh,
and
never go the wrong way against the arrows, Steve.
I was going against the grain, and I turned down an aisle and I got faced by a couple coming the other way who looked like I just tried to murder their mum because I was going the wrong way. And I stood there and I just blurted out. I was like, "Sorry, mate, you're going to get out of the way."
Oh dear, Steve, you are making friends wherever you go.
Yeah, and I just realised I was going the wrong way. I was like, "Oh, look at that, the arrow's going the wrong way," and I just about faced and fucked off the right way.
That's great. That's the perfect move there, isn't it? Fuck.
Yeah,
just walk away.
But at the same time, I was like, I got down the other aisle. I was like, that was probably a bit rude. Now, fucking, that'll be all right.
Yeah, well, it's too late now, mate. You've run away. You can't turn back and apologise. You've really
you
stick
can't
to your decision there. Exactly.
I'd already left him with a cloud of breath. I was like, see
ya. Right, so anyway, thank you, George, for your lovely message, and thank you, Geraldo, for your correction there. Both are much appreciated. If you guys have got anything you want to say to us about anything we've said on the show, any corrections, any nice comments, any of the above, then you can find us on...
We are For the Love of MotoGP. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram. We have a Facebook page, or drop us an email at fortheloveofmotogp@gmail.com.
Good stuff. And if you can do us a solid, guys, if you can leave us a review or a rating or wherever you're listening, a like or a thumbs up or however it works across the many platforms, that is also much appreciated, and it does help other people find the show. Fantasy League, Steve. Well, we said in the last week's show we would cover that this week. However, I think we can probably save it for next week.
Yeah, let's stretch that one out to next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about it next week. We could have a proper look at it and just try and memorize some numbers, and let's chat about it then.
Okay, good stuff. We'll do that then. So we'll bring you the Fantasy League info in the next show, guys, and that will be out next week, and that will be our second half of the season recap.
It will.
Cool. So, I think on that note then, before we go down any more tangents and waste any more time of any of you lovely listeners, let's call it. So thank you very much for listening, guys. We will speak to you next week. Stay safe, wash your hands, fist bump. Speak to you soon.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Music is by Andrew Greenwood. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.